Hello everybody, welcome back to Ketchup Court. I go by the name of Heinz. Thank your friendly neighborhood Ketchup man. Thank you so much for tuning in for another episode of the Ketchup Court podcast, where we bring you recaps and trial discussions, and that's what we do on this channel. Today we are continuing with our coverage of the Christopher Wolfenbarger trial, and to be quite fair, if you've been following us on the previous catch-ups, it is now, I guess we can say that things are calming down a little bit. There's not been late discovery errors or more prosecutorial blunders. If I could say on the back end, I would say there has not been that much in this that's happening today. There has not been witnesses that has been in prison, that has been convicted felons, that has occurred today. So we can pretty much say that maybe this is starting to look like a normal case, but it doesn't seem like anything normal occurs in the county of in Fulton County, simply because of just how this case is panning out and just how this case has been handled, and it's left me wondering how it got to trial. So for those that have not been following from day one, I'll just give you a quick background. Christopher Wolfenbarger has been charged and accused of murdering his girlfriend, Melissa Wolfenbarger, who is the daughter of a serial killer called Carl Patton. Her remains were found on the 29th of April, 1999, and the rest of her remains were found. Her head was found then. Her legs and all her legs was found on July. I believe it was July 1999, and it was all sent for processing. She was misidentified at first, but and assumed that her remains belonged to a man. But after some dental records, etc., all those things, it turned out that it was actually the skull, the legs, all those things belonged to a woman. She was properly identified in 2003, and yeah. So fast forward to 2024, Christopher Wolfenbarger was arrested and charged with the crime. He has tried to have a bond hearing, 2 bond hearings that has been denied from him. So now we're here in court. It's been so it's been a long journey. We have been wondering, why are they bringing him? And it seems so far, based on the evidence presented, it seems like the prosecution are only bringing this case and trying this case simply because of the fact that there's a DV allegation against Christopher, that in their relationship, that they had a pretty tumultuous relationship. So that's why he is basically a suspect, and that's why he's basically in court. I would say nothing has been presented so far to suggest that Christopher had done this, but we're gonna go through the witness testimonies so that you can basically decide for yourself whether there is something here. But for me, I'm wondering how on earth this got to court. Anyway, let's recap on the witnesses from day 3. Only 3 witnesses gave testimony. This was Thomas Dixon, who was the supervisor at Waffle House. He was Thomas Mike Dixon is called. He was Melissa's affair or toy boy, whatever you want to call it. But Melissa was having an affair with him in during the marriage with Chris. He gave testimony about how he was a convicted felon and how he robbed a bank. So there was loads of questions from me how that career trajectory even happened, how he moved from being a supervisor at Waffle House to being a bank robber. But that's neither here or there. He testified to, of course, there being abuse with Melissa by the hands of Chris. So that Melissa you used to tell him, and he saw marks on her as well. I just want to say hi to Baka. Welcome to the stream. I appreciate you for joining. Thank you so much. I hope that you're doing well. Continuing on with the recap from day 3, then we had testimony from Christina Garrett, who was the daughter of Melissa and the daughter of Christopher himself. She was primarily raised with the Wolfenbargers, and she never really knew who the mom was. To be quite fair, I did not understand this particular testimony. If I'm being honest, I did not know why it was offered, because there was no way of tying anything to Chris. She didn't witness anything. She was only 3 around the time that the mom would have died. So I struggle to find any evidentiary value being presented being presented by Christina for this particular murder. So the only thing that came out that I can remember was his license change, and how he said that because the address on his license was different, they cannot find him or something like that. So I'm guessing that testimony may be useful in terms of he was already trying to cover his tracks by changing the address on his license. To me, it didn't stock well, but it was somewhat useful for the prosecution. Then we heard from Alton B. Calhoun, who was the investigator with the Melissa Wolfenbarger case. He wasn't the lead investigator, directly. He wasn't directly involved in the investigation or anything like that, but he testified to picking up later on after, I forgot the name, was it Kelly? I believe it was Kelly, who was the lead investigator for during the investigation. But he had picked up after, in 2003, he had interviewed the leads that he had. He had interviewed Christopher back then, and so that's pretty much the witnesses from day 3. So hey Dr. Rachel B, I appreciate you coming back. Welcome, and I hope that you had a great day. So the witnesses for day 4 were as follows: Pete Ricketts. He was working in the missing. He was part of the. He works in the Department of Crimes Against Children, Women, and Missing Children, and Missing People. Sorry, and he was basically part of the investigation, aiding out in the investigation after they were trying to identify Melissa. We are gonna go into his testimony. We are also gonna go into the testimony of Liane Elizabeth Lacosse. She was a surgeon at the Atlanta Police Department, who also assisted in the investigation. Then we're gonna go through the testimony of Richard Stein, who was the captain at the police department and also done interviews, I believe, with Christopher. Then we're gonna go through the the interview of Jarion Shepherd. He is an homicide investigator that was pretty active in this case. His interview, in my opinion, was extremely weird. I think we're gonna spend a bulk of this stream with his interview because there were so many things that I noticed that I'm wondering. Maybe they are actively targeting him. That they are actively targeting Christopher based on his interview. Then we heard from Dr. Mary Beth Hauptie, who was the forensic odontologist. She was the one that analyzed the dental records to identify Melissa. Then we heard from Dr. Mark Gilbeau and the anthropologist. So a total of 19 witnesses as testified so far. We're gonna go through 6 of them. So yeah, make sure that you hit that like button and also share this stream to really help us out with the YouTube algorithm. And it'll be really helpful. Oh yeah, and also don't forget to hit that subscribe button as well to so that you can be notified whenever we go live. I just want to say hi before going into today's witnesses. Hello, take it a trial. I appreciate you for joining. Thank you so much for joining. Make sure you go check out her channel chat. She has been covering, I believe she's covering this case, but I think that she is covering more of young Dolph. I'm not sure if I'm wrong. Correct me in the chat. But the point is, you should go check out her channel. She always does live streams of as it happens, gavel to gavel. So do go check her out if you want to follow this case or other cases live as it happens. I remember her from the Ali trial. She was perfect for that. She was really entertaining to watch. So yeah, make sure you go check her out. Becca 103 says, I'm convinced the parents didn't do it. Wait, I'm not convinced the parents didn't do it. Based on my day 3 recap, I said it then. Based on the evidence came through, you can disregard the parents in all fairness. Even if they have killed family and friends, you can still disregard them. But that Eric character, I believe he's more likely to be the person that have done this because he already has a motive to have carried out something like this because he is a victim of her being Melissa. He's a victim of Melissa's father's crimes. Like they murdered one of his family members. So he could have easily done this, and testimony already came out from Norma Patton on day 3 that I believe it was day 4. Day 3. No, day 2. No, day 3. Day 3, because we went through the cross-examination of Norma Patton. So regarding her testimony where that came out about there being molestation from Eric on Melissa, there is a high likelihood that it could have been him if you even want to discount the parents. So the evidence so far, in my opinion, is just not pointing to Christopher, in my opinion. So let's dive into today's witnesses. Pete Ricketts was up and he gave testimony in regards to dealing with the missing persons report and also investigating Kathy Wolfenbarger, and he testified that she was actually being reluctant in giving information. There are so many ways to look at this testimony, because I immediately thought, of course, she'll be reluctant to give information because she has just had, I believe this interview inquiry to Kathy Wolfenbarger, who is Christopher's mom. I believe this may have happened in 2001 sometime. And of course, she will be apprehensive, or which makes sense because of the family that she has had to deal with. She may have also been thinking that they're here to take away the kids that she just got from the Pattons. So I didn't really make much of that testimony. He also testifies to interviewing Christopher Wolfenbarger on the 12th of September 2001, 18 months after the initial missing persons report. He wasn't aware of an investigation or the body parts being found in Atlanta. So he basically went into the case cold. So I'm guessing he learned along the way or something like that. But I didn't think, based on what the jury has seen so far in regards to how this whole team has handled the investigation, this may not be the best of testimonies, because it just shows that for people learning about the case to not be aware of all the information may be bad, but maybe I'm looking too far into it. He testifies to the notes that was taken during the interview. He also testified that it was noted in his report that he got married to Melissa around 1995. He also mentioned 1992, but we know it's 1995. And again, just showing the unreliability of the note taking that was happening back then. A video was brought into evidence to show Chris's interview back in 2001 when he done it. I believe it was September, but this particular interview was not great for the sound. In fact, it was really, really horrible. So he had to rely on his notes. And like I said, based on what we're seeing so far, we have seen that some of the note taken by the officials that's part of this case has been very poor. So I don't know how the jury are going to internalize what's coming out of the notes versus the poor audio and video. Maybe, just maybe, they may recognize that it was a different time and the audio could be forgiven, the video could be forgiven. So maybe that grace could extend to the bad note taking. I have no idea. But maybe it could backfire on the prosecution. A video was also brought into evidence of he testified that Christopher had said that him and Melissa were together in December 1998, and that he last saw her walking on the street in 1999, saying she looked sick and possibly using drugs, and said that she may have been involved with somebody else that goes by the name of Mike, who we know is Thomas. The most important part that I want to point out from this testimony, which I'm gonna go to soon to play, is the fact that he doesn't give an exact month or year, but we did hear from the investigator Calhoun about him saying that it was in March. So a lot came out today that kind of gave a lot more context in regards to what happened around that March, February, and April time. Let's hear what he has to say in regards to this time frame.
On Waffle House in Doraville. Right. That the glass company was on Avon Street, but I don't have a city or any other location for it.
Okay. And did he tell you about where Melissa worked?
Yes.
Where did he tell you Melissa worked?
On Waffle House in Doraville.
Now, did he discuss to you about his relationship with Melissa around November, December of 1990?
Yes.
What do you recall him telling you about his relationship with Melissa around that time?
That they were together around the November, December timeframe of 98.
Did he tell you anything about being separated but then getting back together? God bless you.
Thank you.
He stated that they were together for about a month in that time, and so I don't want to misstate your question, but I don't know that we discussed so much being separate. He just indicated they were together for about a month, which might imply that, but.
Okay. I'm gonna approach it now.
You don't have to ask every time for the same witness. Thank you.
I'm gonna direct you to.
Okay, like I say, that he did indicate they were separate and they gotten together for about a month at that time.
Okay.
Ms.
But you-
Hilton, I'm sorry for interrupting. Can you take down the screen share, please?
Oh, sure. I'm sorry.
Thank you.
He told you they got But did you notate that he told you they got separated but got back together around Thanksgiving 1998?
Yes.
All right. And then according to him, did he tell you when Melissa moved out?
Yes,
When did he tell you that she moved out?
around Christmas of 1998.
All right. Now, after she moved out, did he tell you if he ever saw Melissa again?
He did.
Okay. What did he tell you about when he saw Melissa again?
He stated that he saw Melissa walking on Lee Street in Atlanta several months after that she had left, so sometime in 1999.
Okay. Do you recall him telling you approximate month about when he saw her in 1999?
I don't recall it. I'll review the report.
Do you recall him telling you it was between either March or April of 1999?
I don't recall that, and I don't know that I notated the specific month.
Okay.
I think that's really important because there's a lot made from Calhoun's testimony. Like, it seems like they're banking everything on what Calhoun said in regards to him saying that he last saw Melissa around March. But his own testimony that came out of the police interview that he had, I believe it was in 2015, offered a different perspective, which we're gonna get to. Lexi, the law nerd, I appreciate you joining. If you want a more readable version, like of a recap, because she writes it all into a note format, you can go check out her Twitter. I'm gonna leave it in the description. In fact, if you need anything regarding this case, any info regarding this case, you can check out the description. The court documents that has been compiled by Aptly Angry Lawyer is in the description as well. You can find all the court documents, like because there's been a lot of talk around this case, away from this case. A lot of people probably heard this case from podcasts, etc. And we deal with facts over here, just what goes on in the courtroom and what has been proffered, what has been tendered into evidence through court documents. So make sure that wherever you get the information, that you look into the core facts of this case, because what has been said on these podcasts has been wildly inaccurate, I would say. But I don't want to bash any podcast hosts out there or anything like that. Just if you're looking for the info, it's better to get it from an accurate source, is what I'm trying to say. So check out the documents that has been compiled in this case if you want to learn more about what's happening in the trial and the background of this particular case. So let me move on. He also gave testimony in regards to being the one to put Melissa's dental records into the system, which aided in the later identification of Melissa. This was done on the 3rd of December 2001. And he also testifies to being contacted about the records that was in the in the system on the 12th of March 2003. This was when the identification, I believe around this time, was when the identification was made. He also testifies to interviewing Chris again on March 2003, but didn't have the dates recorded of when this interview was done. He says that he was interviewing with Detective Calhoun, so he was with Detective Calhoun. I'm guessing that they may have been sharing information, and he can't recall specifically when Chris had said from the interview that he saw Melissa. Let's go to that testimony right here, because again, this, in my opinion, with all of this coming out on direct exam rather than cross exam, is just really bad for the state, because it just makes them seem like they didn't really know what they were doing back then. And if you're trying to meet the reasonable doubt bar for the jury, they are going to look at these type of things when they have to weigh up the information, when they have to weigh up the evidence, because the investigators are not even trying to give them a cohesive timeline. They're not even doing their jobs properly. And you cannot say that every precinct or every investigation is like this, because we have seen examples of clean investigations being done even around that time. I mean, look at the Menendez brothers case that happened way before this case. You know, that was in 1992. The way that case was tried was honestly, at least they done a much better investigative work compared to what I'm seeing here. So it's not more or less the times or a reflection of, oh, it's the 90s, so everyone is doing really badly. It's just more of, there have been too many mistakes in this case to point to Christopher. Even if there was DV in the relationship, that doesn't necessarily mean that he would go out and kill his wife, you know. So, but the prosecution theory is that he went out because she was going to leave him. So I guess that's what they're hinging on, but we shall see. Therapist, welcome to the stream. Ruth Ann, I appreciate you for coming back. Hello, welcome to the stream. Let's move on to the cross-examination. And I believe this was the part that pretty much exemplifies my point, and it was raised on cross-examination.
Yes. So I only have, the audio, which I did listen to, and then trying to recall that is difficult.
Well, it wasn't my hand. When was the last time you listened to it?
I was listening to part of it this morning, but I didn't make it completely through. I listened to it a couple of days ago as well.
Okay. And this was 22 plus years ago?
Yes, sir.
Okay. I just have a couple of questions. I want to talk to you about you talked about having met the grandparents and Patton family. And then you met with Chris the first time on September 12th, 2001, right?
I think that's right, yes.
And where was that meeting?
Henry County Police Department.
Okay, so he came to the police department, just met with you because you asked him to come and he came to meet with you?
Right.
Okay. That was the day after 9/11.
Yes, that's right.
Okay. Because it was September 12th, 2001.
Right.
Okay. Or I imagine a lot of our minds were in different places that day. And he told you about the background. He told you where they lived, right?
Yes.
824 Brookline. He told you that she had worked at the Waffle House in Doraville, right, Melissa?
Yes.
And I'm just going by your report because I can't listen to the audio either because it's totally inaudible, basically, that audio. He told you that the relationship was such that sometimes she would leave for days at a time?
Yes.
Stayed at motels, including up near the Waffle House where she then worked?
Yes.
Okay. And there was when you were answering the prosecutor's questions, there was some concern about when he said he had last seen her. Your notes indicate that what he said was that she moved out in Christmas of '98, right?
Right.
Okay. And that he saw her one more time a few months later, correct?
That's correct.
Okay. And this is when she was walking on the street, and later when you talked to him, whatever, 2 years later, he said it was heading towards the train station or outside the train station, correct?
Yes.
Okay. So he told you basically the same thing 2 years later when you talked to him up in Lawrenceville, correct?
That he saw her on the street on one occasion, and then more information that they spoke on the second occurrence,
Right. He said that she looked disheveled when he saw her that occasion?
Yes.
Okay. He also reported to you that he was aware that she had been involved with a man named Mike, right? He's from the Waffle House up in Doraville, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And that's when he mentioned that she was staying at a hotel with Mike, as far as he knew, correct?
The way I have it noted is that he said that she was involved with this person named Mike that worked at the Waffle House, and that I noted that one time when she left Mike, she was staying at a Shallowford Lodge. So,
Okay, very good. And then he also told you exactly where he lived, and gave you the address. You mentioned that already, that he said he lived in Hinesville. Gave you his phone number, gave you his address, all of which you noted in your report, right? Okay, so he wasn't hiding out where he was or using a fake name or anything like that,
not
correct?
that I know of.
All right, so that was to just clean up what the prosecution were trying to introduce, were trying to show, because they've been trying to show Chris to be evading justice as the years progressed. So what they're trying to show here, and it's gonna come out a lot with in the next investigation, with the next witnesses. But what they're trying to at least show here is that why would he just start evading justice if he was already cooperating, closer to the crime, before all of that? Why would he try to evade justice? We also knew from yesterday's testimonies that came in that he gave pubic samples, hair samples, all this time to Detective Calhoun to aid in their investigation. So if this is some criminal mastermind that knows that they've committed the perfect crime and they will never tie him to it, because regardless of the hair samples, because that's what I think the prosecution are going with, it's just it's uncharacteristic that he would do something like that. But what I wanted from that testimony that I don't think he testified to, because I think it's here, is this.
Or Mr., or what do you prefer?
Tom is fine.
Tom. Well, Tom, how are you today?
I'm doing well, thank you.
So that just Mr. Wolfenbarger was, there was a tape, but you didn't take any notes at all during so you're going by memory?
No, I listened to the audio. Unfortunately, if there was a report generated about it, which there should have been, I don't have, access to it or haven't been provided at this point. So that's the downside of that for me. I can't refer to it as I could the first one.
Yes.
So I only have, the audio, which I did listen to, and then trying to recall that is difficult.
So that testimony, in my opinion, just shows one of the many downfalls in this case, because he knows the procedure. Like, the people that are supposed to handle the evidence were supposed to create reports based on the interviews that he did and now he's seeking for more information, especially down the line. This is why it's done. And when the jury just hears this, it's just, I just find it hard for this case to actually, especially with the judge here, I find it very hard to even get past the judgment for acquittal. But I just want to say hi to Shamrock, Facts, Truth, Justice, and she said he or she don't really know your gender, but she says, "Oh my goodness, loving the YouTube algorithm, missed you all. I have so much to catch up on." I like the way you say catch up there. But yeah, you are in the right place. I'm gonna do my best to bring as much information as possible. But yeah, these are from this particular witness. This is what the prosecution has an uphill battle with. There was no cleanup, no redirect after this. Don't know what the prosecution they would at least, I would imagine that they would at least try to come up and try to show the integrity of the investigation, but it's like they're trying to give it to the jury to just forgive them because of time changes. I wouldn't put it out there that they're gonna make this in their closing arguments, that they're gonna say time has passed, and it does impact cases, that they shouldn't look at all of this. So maybe that's what it's gonna be. Anyway, the next witness is Liane. Liane Elizabeth Lacosse. She was the one that was basically handling the cadaver dogs, or was part of the investigation, but she just testified to there being a search by the cadaver dogs that was in a different jurisdiction. This goes back to the testimony that was given by Calhoun. He was speaking about the cadaver dogs, and the cadaver dogs were there, and they did perform the search or something like that's what he said on day 3. No, day 2, I believe he was day 3, my bad. That's what he said on day 3 when he gave his testimony. But regarding this particular witness, she said that the cadaver dogs didn't do any search. So it seems like Calhoun gave an inconsistent testimony when he was on the stand. So because this witness here says no, the cadaver dogs didn't do any sort of testing. Sorry, they didn't do any sort of search. She also testified to the involvement in this particular case, and says that the report that she had developed didn't produce any evidentiary value. And I was wondering why this was actually happening, why she was actually allowed to say that the report that she found that she was given didn't actually have evidentiary value. So she also testified to seeing to overseeing the interview with Chris. I believe this was the 2021 interview, if I'm not mistaken. No, 2003 interview. Sorry, my bad. This was 2003 interview. That she was overseeing that interview with a police officer with a personnel. I'm not sure if it's a police officer or whatever, but the personnel is now deceased, so they couldn't bring in that interview through her because the state was trying to bring in the contents of the interview through her, but the defense objected under the confrontational clause, and they basically said that that there's no witness that can come in to testify to the authenticity of whatever interview was going on, so portions of it can't be played. So the judge sustained that objection. So there was also a very quick cross-examination of involvement with the cadaver search team, and she said that she wasn't part of the search, and there was no search done by the cadaver dogs. This is what I was saying earlier in regards to the Calhoun testimony and this particular testimony. So there was no redirect after this either. There was no redirect on witness. The next witness was Richard Stein, and I believe, in my opinion, he was probably the worst witness, but he testified to becoming involved in the case due to the involvement of Abate and Adrian Love back in 2021. I think when I was in the chat watching, a lot of people knew about these guys, and I was like, who are these guys? Like, a lot of people were like, oh, here is Adrian Love again. I only found out yesterday from the free stream that these guys were involved in the YSL trial, Adrian Love and all that. So I would imagine Lexi, the law nerd in the chat, would know way more about the YSL case, if I'm being honest. So, but anyway, moving on back onto this case, Richard Stein also gave testimony in regards to checking the evidence that they had, and he says that there was difficulty locating evidence such as the phone that was being used at the time, and it was basically irretrievable, and there was a videotape that was also irretrievable. So this was, I'm guessing, interview. This was, I'm guessing, to refute what came out on day one, where he said, where the witness, I forgot his name already, but he was part of the police force that was on the scene, collecting the evidence and collecting the remains. He was saying that there were reports missing from his file. So I'm guessing that this testimony is to basically counteract that. And let's listen to a part of it.
I mean, we've heard evidence of at least one videotape that the police department had, and this is after this occurred after that evidence would have been in the property of the Atlanta Police Department. So I think this is part of the explanation of evidence that's come in during the course of this trial.
Okay, I'm going to allow it, but let's not go too far down that road.
Thank
Okay.
you.
Overruled, sir.
Okay.
You would testify.
What we had was every now and then they had difficult locating it. So we would put in, so they may have, for example, I can't remember this case off the top of my head if there was anything that we weren't able to locate, but a phone. The phone was in their evidence room, but their evidence room is absolutely enormous. This was a separate case, and we were never able to get it. They wrote a letter saying that the phone, they had it, but it was irretrievable.
Okay. Now, you were referring to this list of items that needed to be completed. Was there an intent to present your investigation or the unit investigation to the DA for an indictment decision at some point?
Yes. But basically, we all worked together on it.
Okay, so I don't want that part. So he just basically went down to the people that he was working together in this particular case. But the part that I believe was interesting was him coming out on direct that I believe the bags that they collected, the remains or something like that, didn't hold much evidential value. Let's watch.
Trying to pull out whatever DNA may have been in the knot, if there was any. And she's had some success. And that's basically of what we were doing at that time.
Okay. And would that have also been, what year would that have taken place?
That it probably would have been around I want to say the following year, maybe 2020. It's got to be 2022, I would imagine. I would have to see. I don't know if I have.
Okay.
Yeah, 2022 is probably when it was sent off, and I don't think we got the reports back until about 2023.
Okay. To the best of your knowledge, did that result in information that allowed the office to proceed with an indictment?
To my knowledge, I don't know. The indictment part came after I ended up going to Chattahoochee Hills.
Okay. But to the best of your knowledge, the results of that didn't automatically trigger an indictment. As far
Didn't automatic. No, the results came back and everything. To the best of my knowledge, was inconclusive. It didn't really hold, unfortunately, any evidentiary type value.
And in addition to the bags themselves, was there anything else that was submitted for testing or comparison purposes?
I would need to see the list that we sent them, but it was basically just everything. I want to say it was several bags that were all sent out to Francine Bardol to test. I think some items were also some clothing.
Okay.
But again, I'm doing this off of memory.
All right. If you were to see a copy of the front part of the report, would that refresh your recollection as to some
Yes,
of the items?
it's because I know we sent buccal swabs as well. with it.
And what is a buccal swab in
A
particular?
buccal swab is an oral swab for comparison.
So I have no idea why this would be important, because he just gave a testimony that that he sent off all of this testing from the materials that they had collected back then, that they had retested them essentially, and there was no evidentiary value. It didn't hold any evidentiary value. This was in 2023 that he testified to, and to be quite honest, it seems like these guys are disinterested in this case. It just seems like there's no motivation to actually see through this case, and I am wondering again how they brought this case into court if their testing did not hold any evidentiary value, if it didn't bring back any DNA evidence or whatever. Like, why would you bring that into a court, and why would you suspect it's him? So again, more reasonable doubt for the jury to consider if it even reaches that far. On cross-examination, the defense highlights the involvement of the news station and the podcast in 2021 that triggered that basically triggered this particular indictment, and that triggered the opening of the investigation. So he said that that news reports and podcasts had been involved in this particular case, which shows that they're actually working this because of societal pressure. I'm guessing that's what the defense might be arguing on their closing arguments, that they don't have anything, that they're doing is based on pressure from the public, basically. So I think that might come up. I'm not too sure. And the defense also highlights the DNA reports, and the most weirdest part about his testimony is that he says that Christopher was excluded. So let's literally, I cannot believe it. Let's watch.
So is it fair to say that those reports are reports of the DNA testing agency or company?
Yes. So there were two separate companies involved.
Who are these reports from?
All right. This one. This one's all from Pure Gold.
And you've referenced the Francine Bardole, is her name on that?
Right. So Francine Bardole is, here she is, but her company's listed underneath.
Okay.
Cold Case Solutions and Resources.
So it appears she was subcontracting out the work.
Correct. What she would do is that she would process the evidence, and then there was only very limited places that was able to do the DNA in a short time frame, and that's where we used the other company. I want to say that it was Susan Bryan was the one that worked the evidence.
Okay. And in the list, I'll ask you in a minute.
Sure.
And does that list reflect an item 8.1?
Yes.
And what was item 8.1?
It says a bag containing a mixture of DNA. Do you want me to read it?
Sure, go ahead and read the results, if you will.
Okay. A mixture of DNA consists with originating from at least 5 contributors, with at least 2 male contributors, was obtained from item number 5.
Thank you.
2
And
male
now if you would-
contributors, by the way.
Yes.
Would you please read the results on that second report that was sent?
Yes. On this one, it says Christopher Wolfenbarger is excluded as a possible contributor to the mixture obtained from item 8.1.
Your Honor, the state is stipulated to the admissibility of this.
What are the exhibit numbers?
And I would like to move to interstate or defendants 8 and 9, please.
And because there's a stipulation, Mr. Faucette, I assume there's no objection?
No objection.
Okay, defendants 8 and 9 are admitted. Go ahead.
No further questions, Your Honor.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Faucette, additional follow-up for this witness?
No further questions.
Thank you, sir.
Blows my mind. absolutely blows my mind. You're putting on a case right here where there's a third-party culprit argument being made. DNA results come back with 2 new testings. DNA results come back with 2 male profiles attached to this. You don't go back up there to try and explain what this DNA profile means. Go through, at least try to show if the DNA profiles is conclusive. You know, try to put it back to the jury that, hey, even though they have got DNA profiles here and they have excluded Christopher, it's still not conclusive that it's still not 100% conclusive based on these limitations. There's this, there is that. It was 20 years ago. So many. Oh, I could not believe it. Because now the jury has 2 people that they're just gonna naturally infer: the dad and Eric. If not Eric, or that if not dad, it will definitely be Eric or Thomas. It's with Chris being excluded. They might just look at that and just be like, we have no choice but to acquit him, because end of the day, their own results, it's saying that there's no way that he could have done this. It's absolutely insane. It's really wild. No, they won't, because I don't think I don't know how judgment for acquittal are decided. I've never seen a case decided like that, but I would really love to see what the judge would argue when that argument comes up at this point, because they don't even have a DNA. Like, I'm sorry. At least the state put up a fight, because it's like they're being punched out every step of the way. The neighbor that saw the redness, beaten up completely on cross-examination by showing that she was actually convicted so many times during that year that she could not possibly have seen as much incidents as she testified to have seen. That is really likely that her memory may have been adding new memories, because she can't even remember giving the name Jones to Detective Calhoun. Then you have the mother coming onto the stand testifying what she did. We're not going to go through all of it again, but then you have Tina May, who was not even sure, who was inconsistent with how she was reporting what Melissa was telling her about Chris. Inconsistent in the sense that she told the detective that she told her outright that Chris had told her, that not Chris, that Melissa had told her that Chris had been abusing her, and then now understand, she says that she was frightened and couldn't speak. So now her memory is in question. Which is true, you now or back then? What has happened over the years that may have shifted this testimony? And when we're going to hear from the DV expert, you're going to hear testimony along with what Tina May had said, in my opinion. Anyway, this was a very wild cross-exam, and the next witness, Jarion Shepherd, is not any better. Trust me, it's not any better. It's not any better, because he was probably the most defensive. I don't know why you have to be. He was fighting every single thing. It's as if that this case, he just has to go out there and get a win. Shamrock Facts Truth says, I think since Fulton County got called out for not sending their violence against women grant money a few years back, they pulled this one out of the cold cases before the grant ends. Just my crazy guess. I have no idea what's going on in Fulton County or the politics that's going on there, but this is a very frivolous case. You can't try a murder case as a domestic violence case without any tether leading up to it. So the only thing that they have that I do think is beneficial for this particular case is the fact that you have Chris and based on the testimony from the interviews back then, Melissa and Chris had gotten back together around September, October time. So they were together onto December, and then they are probably broken up or she had left him at this point. We don't know who for. We don't know what was happening. It's just they got back together, and all of a sudden. So that's the only thing that I guess is good going for them. She fits the cycle of abuse. So I'm guessing that they're gonna sell this whole particular case on that domestic violence, on that domestic violence wheel that's gonna come in, the cycle of abuse. So, but anyway, let me go on to Jarion Shepard's testimony. He gave testimony in what they do to determine what a cold case is and who they suspected in this case. And he testified that the reason of the suspicion is because both Melissa and Chris were having a violent relationship. He also testifies to the patterns of abuse of domestic violence victims and how they usually fall back into relationships with their abuser. So this is just an overt landing of the bridge, setting a foundation for the expert DV testimony, which we heard today that they're going to end. That the state are going to end with this DV testimony. We're gonna get into that later. He testifies that Melissa never showed up for a court hearing for a battery case on March 15th, 1999, and how her head was found the next month. So she had a battery case against Christopher Wolfenbarger that was supposed to happen. And the next month, she's dead. So she didn't show up for that case. And the next month, she was found dead. At this point, I don't know how you can put that or establish a time of death. I don't think it's required in this case. But if we are trying to establish a time of death, it has to be April. Because all of this shows a significant gap. April 29th, her head was found, decomposed. I think she wasn't recognizable at this point. So it may have been out for 10-15 days. I have no idea. So if we are trying to estimate when this killing was probably happened, it's April 15th to 10th. Like I said in previous recaps, I find it strange. That he would do this and leave the remains at the workplace. How did she even get to the workplace for him to do it? Did he beat her up somewhere else, drive to the workplace, grab the saw, quickly does it, put it in a bag, throw it out, drive off? What was going on? We don't have such theory from the prosecution. He testifies also that the torso was not found, which was very important to the investigation. He also testifies that her head was removed by a saw, and they gave him the saw from that Chris supposedly borrowed from his employers. So that's how they made 2 and 2. But we are going to have to wait for the medical examiner to come in to testify in regards to all of this. He also testified that her limbs and head was removed by a saw. And he testifies to also interviewing Christopher at his home, and he was with Surgeon Layton when this interview was going on, and says that he was with his girlfriend, and the interview lasted for an hour. This interview, he was not in custody or arrested. This interview was an unofficial, I don't know the exact name for it, that's the one, non-custodial. So this interview was a non-custodial interview. He wasn't under arrest, etc. He testified that he asked Chris why he had not reported his wife missing, and also he testified to speaking to Chris in regards to a position of a saw. So there was an audio interview there was an audio played of the interview, which I'm going to try and get to the key point. I'm not going to play the whole audio, but there was a part there was a part that I want everyone to hear, because I was like, this is so, I mean, anyway, it was what I was feeling all this time. So, but before I play this part, I just want to give an overview of the other parts of the audio. I believe the audio is like 7 or 12 minutes long or something like that. But he was basically saying in the audio that he does not remember what he had told Detective Calhoun about the last time he saw Melissa. He also says this was a 2021 interview, by the way. So Chris said that he does not remember what he told Detective Calhoun about when he last saw Melissa. He also says that he doesn't know whether she was seeing other people, and he talks about the saw going missing, and he doesn't know anything about the saw going missing. So let's listen to this part.
So a year goes by, still don't tell anybody that she's gone.
I mean, I'm figuring that she's already done. I mean, we were always talking about changing her name and doing all. She had the stuff there.
Right.
You know, when she got to the point where she was unhappy with me. I'm not trying to push myself in anybody's life that doesn't want me there. I mean, look at my daughter and everything that's going on there. I tried to push, and maybe looking back at it now, I was wrong all the way around with both of them. Maybe I should try to push more and try to do it, but
You said you lost your job, but and what the job, the last company, why did you lose your job?
man, this guy, now, there was a lot of things going on right there with that, but, and I do now the same thing pretty much I did then. I mean, I worked on Volkswagen and things on the side, and there was a guy there, I don't know who stole the thing, there was a saw that was missing. And I can tell you the exact guy that I borrowed this tool from and everything there, I didn't steal their saw, period.
Why did they fire you?
Because he said I stole the saw, because their saw was missing, and I lived around the corner and he drove past my house and he seen the back of the Volkswagen right there, the top was cut off.
So he thought because you cut something off your car that
You know, and I thought, look, I don't know anything about it. You know, and then there was that, and then there was something where I drove through the toll plaza thing on 400. You know, there was just a bunch of little things, and that was just the last straw.
When did you go through the toll plaza?
You know, there used to be a thing where you could go through it.
Right.
You know, and I was under the understanding, yes.
Okay.
I was under the understanding that, you know, there was a bunch of little things. And that was just the last straw. There was nothing, you know, there was no.
They just let you go.
Right.
They didn't file you charges.
Yeah. Well, I didn't do it, and you know, it comes there where I borrowed stuff, I tried to tell them whatever, but like I said, the last straw is the last straw, I guess.
Did you ever go up to the Waffle House and get an altercation with the mail?
I don't remember, I saw that on the internet, I don't remember that.
You guys said you came up there to beat you up.
And it seems like I would remember that, but I don't, no.
You driving a yellow Volkswagen?
I never had a yellow.
Never color was
What?
black. You never yellow.
Never. Nope. I've never had a yellow. I have a thing against yellow cars, actually.
Okay. All right.
Never speak to law enforcement.
Man, every which way I think about it, it has to go back. If her parents didn't do it directly, it had to be something indirectly around them. I would beat my brain.
So when you found out that a body was found just around the corner from where you were, and that the body had been dismembered with a saw,
I didn't know that the body was dismembered with a saw at all.
do you know the body was dismembered?
I heard that. Nobody ever said a saw. I didn't hear about that.
Autopsy report said.
Nobody ever gave me an autopsy. Nobody said that to me. I didn't know that until it was on the internet. Honest to God, I mean.
So what motive would her family have to kill?
I mean, for this sounds strange that they got away with this stuff for all these years, And then all of a sudden, right as we split up and doing this right here, and all of a sudden he ends up guilty. I don't know if she came to him needs money or.
Do you think it's likely that her own family murdered her up and cut her?
Man, her own family killed her family and friends.
Yeah, I know he committed murder, but that's...
So his family and friends.
Well, why would he kill her? What would be the motive for that?
Hey, man,
If he's involved in, your family's involved in criminality and you're trying to protect yourself from going to jail, that's a motive to kill someone. She was, well, motive which he had to kill her.
man, we knew what he did. Her dad was like
So you weren't worried about him coming after you? I mean, if he's going to cut up his own daughter,
how would he come after me? I didn't do anything. I didn't come to, here's what I'm saying, man. I don't know if she needed money or it may have come to him and threatened him in any kind of way, and, you know, and they did, maybe they were drunk and then one thing, I don't know. Anything I say at this point is speculation because I don't know.
Like this is like I agree with him because end of the day, like I have to agree because end of the day, like I know he's pointing the finger at the family. I don't know how the jury are going to take that. If I'm being honest with you, it seems like it's a convenient excuse. If I'm being fair and objective in looking at this, it seems like it's a convenient excuse to blame the family. But at the same time, like I said, the defense have done a great job in bringing in that third-party culprit argument. I'm pointing it at Eric on the normal pattern because end of the day, what Chris is basically trying to say is, no, that family is cuckoo. Why are you looking at me for? Like why would I kind of do this? But at the same time, I think that he should not have done this interview. If the judge have any reason to look at this case and be like, this is enough to give to the jury, I would believe that is likely because of this interview. I would believe that because it just doesn't, in my opinion, it just doesn't look good that you are pointing at all people. They could have done it rather than, just show how you're not the one to have done this, especially if you've agreed to the interview. Just speak the truth. So I feel like that's the only drawback from the interview, but he is partially correct at the same time. The family is a dangerous family. They didn't, based on the facts that come out, they could have easily done this because she was defying them. I mean, they already know that she was on birth control and she wasn't taking it. She was leaving them to go be with Chris. She also took custody. Well, the family, the Wolfenbargers, took custody of her own children away from the Pattons. So there is enough here to lose it. But like I said, they might not look at the parents because the family mainly killed for insurance money. So what would be a plausible motive to go and kill the daughter if they were doing it for the insurance money? Which is why I said the Eric testimony coming in was key, because I believe that the jury might decide to discount, or they might be persuaded by the argument just because the family has a criminal history does not mean that there's a motive for them to kill the daughter. They might discount the argument, but I don't think they're going to discount Eric as being a potential suspect. He also he being Jarion Shepard, the detective, he also testified that that it was a red flag for him. Because he would have expected the husband to look for his wife. So that's why Chris was a red flag for him, because Chris wasn't looking for his wife. And we know his defense in court. He's saying that he thought that she moved on, so he just let her go. but he's saying that this is a red flag. After the break, the prosecution, the defense raised an objection to try and limit the test. In fact, to basically toss the DV expert testimony away from the trial, but it ended up being limited, that she cannot mention the parties in this case, that she hasn't analyzed the party in this case. The defense were essentially arguing that this is not a self-defense case in which they're trying to argue that he's done this previous crimes before, and now he has a change of behavior. So and now he has a reason, basically. So he's saying that the DV, he was saying that the DV testimony coming in would prejudice his client because simply because of the fact that that he is saying that he did not commit DV at all, that he didn't do any of this crime. So it wouldn't be material to bring in the experts, but the prosecution made it clear that it's just going to be a generalized testimony. So on cross-examination, which we're going to watch a few of before moving on to the next witnesses, he gave testimony to he being Jarion gave testimony to not talking to Officer Sutton and only focusing on police reports. This was highly weird for me because you're picking up a case and you're only relying on reports. You're not even doing any extra interviews to try and ascertain more information, try and get more information about the case that you are working on. Maybe you might hear something new. You might get new leads. No. He just picks up that was his testimony. He just picks up the case files, looks at it and be like, yep, this is what we're going to do. We're just going to focus on the reports. So Officer Sutton, who was the respondent officer to the DV call, yeah, he didn't bother speaking to him, even though he gave testimony in court. He testifies that he suspected that he had suspected Chris because Melissa, I was about to say Mindy there for a second, because Melissa was being dragged through the head. And to be quite fair, I did not appreciate how he was narrating his testimony, but let's watch.
Yeah. You don't know what happened that night. You just know what's in the police report, right?
Correct. The only thing I know is what's documented in the police report.
Okay. By the way, did you even try to find Officer Sutton?
I have the official police reports that I can refer to, and that's usually what happens. A lot of cold cases, we don't reach out to those the officers that officially responded to the first scene. We go by the police reports.
I have never watched a trial that's the case. I just haven't. Maybe I have minimal trial watch experience, but you would imagine they would do follow-up interviews to just try and get more information. But
so at any rate, it was customary to refer Ms. Wolfenbarger to get a TPO, correct? A temporary protective order.
Yes, sir. Anytime there's a domestic dispute and the victim of that domestic dispute.
Sir, I just asked you a yes/no question. She was referred to get a TPO, correct?
Yes, she was correct.
You want to make a speech every time I ask you a question, or just say yes or no if you can, all right?
Are you asking me, sir?
Not really. So she takes out a TPO on what day?
We have to refer to the actual document again if we want to get the exact date.
So I'm gonna move on here. The judge, back at 1013 says the judge screwed up by laying the DV expert. In my opinion, I kind of get it because if it's going to be generalized and limited, then this gives the defense a lot more room to object. But at the same time, I do get where you're coming from, because it's not the state's right to present any witnesses that they want. They can't just like the Constitution is not to protect the state, it's to protect the witnesses. So if the defense was to introduce a witness and the judge outright let them go, that to me would be a failing, something that happened in the Karen retrial. But I do understand where you're coming from here. But I believe that because the domestic violence is a relevant topic here, and because there was enough proof to kind of play on in regards to the protective orders, etc. So I do think that her bringing it in on a limited scope where they can generalize and not name people, use people from, it just gives the defense more room to navigate. But I get it, because end of the day it's prior bad acts. It just doesn't, like, the only reason I can see the order being allowed in is because it didn't go forward to it being a conviction, so it was dismissed, and it was requested to be dismissed by Melissa. So I can see that being offered for probative value. But in regards to I do agree with you. In regards to the DV expert, like, I just don't see how that would be probative, because it just, based on what's going to be testified to, it just leaves more room to speculate rather than to speculate on his prior bad acts rather than try the case for the evidence presented. So I do understand where you're coming from, but at the same time, I get where the judge is coming from by generalizing it so that it doesn't identify Chris. Anyway, the defense also highlighted that Chris was cooperative during the interview and was very inviting. He agreed, he being Jarion. The defense also highlights that that if Chris had a right to be suspicious of his activities with his in-laws. So that let me go here so that you can hear the testimony, because I thought that this basically showed the bias in the investigation done by Jarion.
Families, that has nothing to do with what they have to do in their relationship. People can't help who they're related to. Their relationship had nothing to do with their parents.
Let me go back a bit.
I talked to murderers and deal with
a rocky relationship with their in-laws, given what you know are the facts of this case?
I've been doing this job almost a quarter century. I talk to murderers and deal with murders on a daily basis. People from murderers' families. That has nothing to do with what they have to do in their relationship. People can't help who they're related to. Their relationship had nothing to do with their parents.
Yeah, so I mean, like, end of the day, I get, he's trying to bolster his investigation, but at the same time, I just think that he comes across as very biased, because end of the day, it is your duty to try and eliminate all suspects. It is your duty. And I know we're now in court, but at least you could have shown that you did interview these people, that you did try to eliminate them, that you did try and get DNA from them. That's what the defense is trying to get at. But he's saying that he's basically defending them, saying, oh, just because they were criminals does not mean that they did this, because murderers that I have seen, I've got criminal backgrounds, and that but he also testified that Christopher's wife had lied and said that he wasn't there. And this part of the testimony kind of boggled my mind, because I was like, wait, we heard testimony from Stephen O'Hare, I think his name was, the person that was leading the arrest of of Chris, and he was saying that I never heard him say that the girlfriend lied about Chris not being there. In fact, he was saying that she was pretty much cooperative and let them in, and they were asking her where Chris was, and I can't, you know what, I will refer to the chat. Let me know what was said whether he said that Chris's girlfriend had told him that she didn't know where Chris was, or Chris was not here, or something like that. Because if he's saying that Chris had lied, that the girlfriend had lied to cover Chris, and it's not true, big red flag for the state. The defense highlights regarding the DNA evidence that was given by Chris, and it coming back as negative, and he says that in the back of his mind that DNA degrades over time. Okay. So he didn't follow up. I mean, that just doesn't make sense, because we literally just heard testimony in regards the collection of DNA and how that comes back negative. So I don't know what you mean by DNA degrades over time, but let's listen to parts of that testimony.
That's correct.
Okay. And you know about the paint chips that were found inside the bag that didn't match anything in the house?
That's correct, but also at the time when they did serve the search warrant at the house had been remodeled. That particular area had been remodeled, so it was not gonna be uncommon that those paint chips were gonna be dissimilar to one another.
Right. Why didn't the prosecution handle this? Anyway, moving on.
So do I gather that all the evidence that exonerates him, that shows that he's not the person who perpetrated the crime, you consider to be insignificant?
That's incorrect. If you're referring to just physical evidence in that manner, no, but you still have other evidence that goes in line and testimonies that go in line with this case.
I'm just asking about the physical evidence. You downplay the significance of all of that, don't you?
Can never downplay physical evidence. Physical evidence is important, but what you have to keep in mind that over time, physical evidence degrades. And this case is a prime example of that.
You know that cadaver dogs were sent out to the house, correct?
Okay, I heard of an incident. I don't have any direct knowledge of cadaver dogs or APD using any cadaver dogs.
Okay. There's no evidence of, first of all, there was no saw found in the house or in the house where he was arrested years later, correct?
No, the only reference to a saw is when Christopher admitted that he was in possession of, or he was accused of being in possession of while he was let go from his job.
Right.
So I'm gonna continue on, and on redirect exam, the state went through all the possible things that could degrade DNA, which was water, and and he gave a testimony about rain, heavy rainfall could impact the results of DNA, but that's not gonna stop them from collecting DNA. An audio recording was played of the interview with Detective Calhoun with Detective Stein. Chris said that he saw Melissa in around the time of March or April. But the most important part about this audio interview was 5 minutes long. The most important part about this audio interview is Chris actually, I believe he said it was around February, and he wasn't sure whether it was March or April that he had last seen Melissa. So what I gathered from this particular interview is that Calhoun had basically believed that Chris said that he saw Melissa around March, when he said that he didn't even know that he saw Melissa around March, that it was actually around February, that he wasn't sure. So that's where the March date comes from, and it was from this interview. But he also gave testimony that Chris had destroyed a search warrant and was found in a makeshift hole in a wall next to his appliance. So this was when he was being arrested on recross. And I thought that this was the moment that he should have basically gave in or admitted, but the defense was highlighting where the substance of the rainfall testimony came from on direct, and he testified that he got it from the report. The defense shows the report, and the report recorded that it was actually just mist that was found in the air, and then he tried to argue that it could have been rainfall, that there was no drought from the period that the hair was found. It could have been rainfall. There was a heavy that there will be no drought. So what the defense ended up doing was introducing they introduced a weather report around that time. And he said, oh, he's not a meteorologist, so he can't vouch for the authenticity. He can't interpret what was being presented to him. And basically what the defense was basically presenting with this meteorologist is the fact that there was no rainfall. There was no rainfall around this time. So that was efficiently the recross. And I mean, you can say that he held his own, but I just think that this witness was doing his best to sell the investigation that he done. Hello Games, welcome to the stream. Thank you for joining. Let's move on to Dr. Mary Beth Hauptie. We have two witnesses left to catch up on. Dr. Mary Beth Hauptie was the forensic odontologist. I can't pronounce this in my life. Odontologist, basically dentist. You know, she needed a prerequisite qualifications in the area of dentistry before she could go into the role of being a forensic odontologist. And she basically gave testimony that they would approach her when a victim is basically unrecognizable, and she would be the one to analyze their dental records and try to find the witness in this case. Try to identify the victim in this case. I mean, you're welcome, Games. You're welcome. She testified also to being involved in this particular case back in 1999. And she says that she was the one that basically answered the phone call and was accompanied by a medical examiner called Robert Parker, which I believe that we're going to hear testimony from. And she said that all of this happened in 1999. She also said 1998 when she said that she was around the scene, but we know it's 1999. She couldn't remember the exact date they went out to the scene. She also testifies that the head was found and decomposed, and she could see an underlying bone. She gave testimony also about being able to identify Melissa's body while she was on the scene, which I thought that this was a weird testimony because no one could identify the body. No one could identify Melissa at this point. And the worst part about this testimony is that the prosecution the worst part about this testimony is that the prosecution had just let it continue. On. And she basically offered that it was on the defense objection to basically stop her from testifying. So the prosecution could have just hold on to her and just be like, just make it clear for the record. Did you identify her then or in 2020 in 2003? Because she was essentially saying that she identified her on the day. She testified to after the objection. Of course, she testifies to identifying the skull to belong to Melissa Wolfenbarger on the 14th of March 2003. So, what she gave testimony on being able to identify on the street was wrong. Embarrassing cross-examination, in my opinion, because the state was highlighting a few discrepancies in our reports, and they were highlighting that the birth date of Melissa was 1970. When this would make her 27 or 26, I believe. But really, I believe the actual birth date, and I kind of get why the defense asked this question. I kind of get why they asked this question during Norma Patton's testimony. I can't remember the exact date that Norma Patton gave for her birthday. I didn't note it down. I didn't think it was important, actually. But I'm going to have to go back and note it down. But now I get the importance, because the birth, I believe it was 1977, one of the months. But the catalog of errors by the investigators in this case, especially with the wrong birthday being part of the report, just shows how bad this case has handled. And I really believe that this is a smack in the face, a really big smack in the face for the victim here, because they haven't even done a good job. Forget this murder investigation. Even with the DV code that they had, I had strong emotions in regards to how the respondent handled that particular call, and even the professionals here, how they've handled this case is really worrying. In fact, it's a massive smack in the face. And for the state to bring this case to trial, cause all of this fuss, it's just maddening to me, based on a hunch, basically. Was it a tip? Was it even a tip that led them off? I have no idea why they brought this case. The last witness for the day was Dr. Mark Gilbeau, who was the anthropologist. It was a technical testimony, just like Dr. Mary Beth, and he gave testimony to assisting in the case, and he was also aware that her remains was that her being Melissa, that Melissa's remains were recovered at the time. He testifies to what happens to the remains when it is in their custody, and he says that the remains would be he says that the remains he says that the remains would be in a cooler when it is in their custody, and says that that's what actually happened in this case. He also explained the role of a pathologist, who is the person that prepares the body for him to come in and examine. He also testifies that that the saw that was shown to him could have been used to make the marks on the exhibit shown to him, which is basically the dismembered remains of Melissa. That was the that was the bulk of his direct examination. Nothing much of evidentiary value. I pretty much think a lot of the damage was done on cross and recross, because cross examination, there was a key information that the defense reserved till the end, and the defense highlighted something that kind of gave a throwback to the first witness. I forgot his name again, but he was the one that testified to the missing videotape. I keep forgetting his name, but he gave testimony in regards to bleach being and there was confusion there with bleach being in the bag, so he kind of brought that testimony back by the defense, Joel McDurmon, highlighting that the head was a flesh clean, and he testified, and Joel basically asked, can bleach be used for the flesh for the head flesh clean? And he basically said yes, that's one of the ways that is done. Another way is by running the skull under heat. So the idea that this gives is that the bleach was used by the lab rather than the killer. This completely shuts the idea that if it was Chris that was doing this, that the prosecution cannot raise the theory on closing arguments that he used bleach to make it hard for them to gather DNA. I anticipate that the state may have latched onto that defense as the case go on, but this was a very good testimony to get into evidence. the defense continues to highlight the creation date of the method that they were using. And he testified that this method was around since the 40s and 50s. And based on this method, it was concluded as a white male skull. So this highlight was key because it shows that they're using outdated methods. I'm not sure if he testified to it still being used now, but this outdated method on this occasion yielded the wrong result. And it shows that maybe the department could have benefited by trying a different method or by researching for other methods to use in their identification. Basically speaking, that from what I understand of this testimony, it could slip over as well to their DNA testing, how it's done in this particular case. It could slip over to that and cause a bit more doubt in regards to the methods that they use if they made a mistake here in regards to the identification of Melissa. So that's just another demerit for the state, something more to contend with, because there are so many mistakes being made by the investigators for this case. On redirect, I didn't really get much what was really going on with the state. I really tried to pay attention, but I didn't really know what point they were trying to make or what new thing that they were trying to introduce. But yes, it was basically just going through the procedures that they had when they were doing their test. So on recross, I believe this was possibly the best way to end with this witness. And he asked him when DNA was basically introduced in the States, and the follow-up to this question was really interesting. Let's watch.
The identification itself.
Yeah, it by us thinking that it's a male, and so we're looking for males, we're not looking for females. So yeah, that was kind of a problem with the identification in the beginning.
Okay, and you're familiar with the name Dr. Joseph Parker?
Yes, sir.
Are you familiar with where he was conducting his duties as ME at that time?
Yes, sir.
And where was he conducting his duties as ME?
He worked for us at Fulton County. He also worked out at the GBI, and he was also the medical examiner for Bibb County down in Macon.
Okay. And are you aware of a headless corpse that was located, male headless corpse that was located close to Macon during that period of time?
Right. Dr. Parker generally worked on the weekends, and I believe that these remains came in on a Friday. So when he came in on Saturday, this was one of his cases. So he had just come from Macon, where a body had been found with no head. Well, he shows up the next day and there's a head with no body. So the assumption from the beginning was, well, we're going to see if this head matches this body.
Okay. So early on in the investigation, there was a theory that might be the case.
Right.
All right. And did that contribute, or was that a factor in the overall investigation into determining the ID?
I think it had an influence. Yes, sir.
Okay.
I mean, I like his honesty. I really do. I like witnesses that are like this. They make concessions when it's time to make concessions. But this is great because on cross-examination, it shows that the tools that they were using may be outdated. But at the same time, it shows why that they were not using their own tools properly. That they went in with an assumption, which is why that tool failed. So you're getting the idea that maybe we have a tired workforce. You're getting the idea that these guys could have been also incompetent in handling this case, even with the identification of Melissa, that they were incompetent there.
All right, that's all I have, Judge.
Oh wait, so they didn't say the part I wanted, which was the DNA.
To look at certain measurements that were more male and some that were more female. So depending on where the measurements that you took fell in the spectrum, you would classify it either as male or female.
Okay. And what is the purpose of, say, the investigative tool? What does that serve, or what stage does that serve in the investigation process?
We're trying to develop. Yes, sir.
Okay. And do you know when this method was created?
Oh, a lot of it was based on anatomical collections they used.
That's the one I want. I can't find my bill. I wrote that wrong
Process.
time.
Is that the process that it speaks of in the reports of soaking the head in bleach? I see. And did they use other methods for?
Basically trying to remove the flesh, and heat is one of the ways that we can do that.
I see. You mentioned something about taking measurements of the skull.
Yes, sir.
Is that what's known as the Giles-Elliott discrimination?
That's Yep, that's the take. Typically functions, you don't use all of them. It's into the form graph on a chart.
Is male or female? Okay.
Okay, so that's not.
And do you remember?
The surface.
Okay. I got the wrong part. So I'm gonna. Oh, okay. So I'm not gonna. I'll bring it back up tomorrow to show the point. But essentially, it was a chain of custody issue. So when the DNA was sent to sorry, no, not when the DNA. So when they received the head, he basically testified that they were that he was only responsible for analyzing the tissue first. So his work was the tissue first, and he said he volunteered the information basically that that would have been that collecting the DNA before sending it to him would have been for the people that had the remains first before sending it to him. So the DNA collection was not for him to determine, because he's essentially destroying the he's basically destroying the anatomy to essentially try to identify this particular person. So the DNA process should have been done at the first. So at the first stage before it goes to him. So if they have no DNA or no DNA collection before reaching him, it's definitely done because of the work that he has to do. He has to pour bleach on it, which destroys DNA. He has to put it in heat, which also destroys DNA. He has to do all these things in order to carry out his work and identify the people. So that was the last test. That was the last witness. And in all fairness, thanks for joining, Shamrock. Hopefully I will see you again should you return. But thank you for joining. Let me just quickly close up this stream with my final thoughts, because end of the day, I haven't seen any evidence presented to really tie this case together and put Christopher Wolfenbarger as the real killer. I do think that the defense has done okay this time around by at least this introduction of the interview, where you could try to gauge the credibility of Chris based on what he's saying. I do think it's giving them a bit of headway, but there is just so much. The exclusion of DNA from Chris after having DNA profiles coming back to them is just devastating testimony that they don't have any DNA. You can't argue that DNA has eroded over time when you still have DNA profiles that you could test, and the idea that I'm getting is that they're not even testing these DNA profiles that got back to them to try and find their real killer, that they're just focusing on Chris because there was former DV. In my opinion, that's not how it's supposed to be done. You follow the evidence, you don't follow the person. They like evidence of killing, by the way, or evidence in regards to putting together, in regards to tying a person together, to tying a person to the crime. They have a history of a bad act, but that's it. That's not, in my opinion, that's not a compelling reason to bring a case. You follow the evidence and then you bring the case. You make sure that everyone that could be a suspect has been eliminated because of hardcore evidence like DNA. Yeah, sure, DNA passes over time, but at the same time, they still have profiles coming back. That is going to linger in the mind of a jury, in my opinion. Would this case meet the judgment for acquittal? I don't think so. I don't really think so. I don't think I've seen enough that would reach that. In fact, we've heard testimony that he would likely not be the person. We already heard testimony about Chris not even being in his house, not even being in the location around February. So the time that Chris had given, because we heard from Miss Cooley, who was on day 2, that Chris had already moved away at this point in around February 1999, and there was no female clothes there. It was only male clothes. So maybe this is the only time that Chris has seen her before he had moved away. That's the only information that we have to work with. I will create a timeline for tomorrow's stream. I would, based on what evidence is going to come out tomorrow, because I do think that the states are starting to wind down their case and we might get to see a defense case. You know, I have no idea, but I don't think Chris is going to go on a stand. I don't think so, but we might have a defense case. I don't know. But it does seem like the states are starting to wind down with their case. So I will make a timeline to try and bring together all this madness and see what evidence is basically out there that could point to Chris. But I'm not seeing it. There's only testimony in regards to DV. That's it. But I don't think that's enough to tie to murder. I think the battery charge that she missed in March is quite convincing. Because apparently this charge was taken out against Chris, so there may have been something happened there that caused her to take out this charge. She missed it. So what would she miss this court hearing? So would this mean that the murder had been committed around this time, March? We don't know. Is this why she missed it? Because she had missed it because of reasons of drugs? That is something that the state has a burden to establish. Time of death is not important in Georgia. You know, time of death is not important. Motive is not important. Premeditation is not important. They just have to show that this person had enough cause to basically commit the crime. So that's what I understand in regards to felony murder and malice murder. But anyway, thank you so much, everyone, for tuning in. I hope to see you again tomorrow when we go through day 5 recap of what is happening in Fulton County right now. This case is maddening, in my opinion. It should not be happening, but here we are. So I'm going to be bringing you the recaps as the case continue. Thank you so much, everyone, for tuning in, and I do hope that you've found this stream informative. If that was the case, make sure that you tune in. Make sure that you hit the like button, and also hit the share button. Let everyone know that this is the domain for you to catch up on these cases. And also don't forget to subscribe to receive notifications whenever we go live. See you all tomorrow. check the description for where you can learn more about this case, for the court documents, as well as other recaps in text form if you prefer that. Anyways, I go by the name of Heinz, your friendly neighborhood ketchup man. Thank you so much for tuning in. Take care. Bye for now. Thank you everyone for tuning in for another Ketchup Court live stream. Make sure that you smash that like button as well as hitting that subscribe button to be notified of our future live streams. We go live regularly, bringing you case updates and recaps of ongoing trials, so make sure you hurry back on the next live stream. We also have more content on the channel that you can binge on. Check out the playlist that we have showcasing all of these contents. Without further, I go by the name of Heinz, your friendly neighborhood ketchup man, and I'll see you back in court.